Today our focus is percents and decimals. So first we're going to talk about how do we take a percentage and write it as a decimal. There are two different methods we can use. We can first remove the percent symbol and divide by 100. Percentages are always out of 100, so we divide by 100 here. So I have 23%, I remove my percent symbol and divide by 100, and I get 0.23. A shortcut method would be to take my percentage and move the decimal 2 places to the left, because dividing by 100 moves the decimal 2 to the left, and remove my percent sign. I get 0.23 also. Now if I want to write a decimal as a percent, I'm going to do the exact opposite. One method would be to multiply by 100 and add my percent symbol. So I take my decimal, 0.36, multiply by 100, and add a percent sign to get 36%. Or I can just do my shortcut and move the decimal 2 places to the right. Multiplying by 100 moves my decimal 2 spots to the right, and I get 36%. So let's try a couple of these problems. I'm going to use the shortcut. So when I'm writing a percent as a decimal, I'm going to move my decimal point 2 spaces to the left. So my decimal is right here after the last number, 52%. If I move it 2 to the left, I'm going to get 0.52. I'm going to add my 0 in front there, 0.52 is my placeholder. If I want to change 7% into a decimal, here's my decimal, I move it 2 to the left. Since I've got an open slot here, I'm going to fill it in with a 0. It's going to become 0.07 or 0.07. Now if I want to change my decimal to a percent, I do the exact opposite. My decimal is going to move 2 spots to the right. And I'm going to add a percent symbol. So this is going to become 47%. 2 to the right, my decimal will be right between that 6 and that 3 at the end. So it's going to become 66.3%. 2 to the right, and I need to add a 0 here as a placeholder. So I'm going to have 180%. And one more, move them 2 to the right, goes right in between the 0 and this 9, so 0.9%. Now let's say we find a fraction and we want to change that fraction into a percent or a decimal. Like we take a math test, we get 92 out of 100 points, and at the top of our paper, our teacher has written 92 out of 100. What are some other ways to represent this? Well, since it's already out of 100 and all percentages are out of 100, I know it's 92%. If I want to change 92% to a decimal, I'm going to move my decimal 2 spots to the left, and I'll have 0.92. Or I can take my fraction, and I can reduce it by dividing here, both of them divide by 4, and I get 23/25. Now the question asks us, which of the following is not another way of expressing 92 out of 100? We can change it to all these different representations. The only one here that we don't have is C, 17/20. So this one is not another way to represent our 92 out of 100. So this figure shows different portions of ultraviolet rays that are reflected by 4 different surfaces. So grass reflects 3% of these rays, sand 0.14 of the rays, seafoam 25% of these rays, and water 21/25 of these rays. And they want to know how many times more UV rays are reflected by water than seafoam. So seafoam obviously reflects less. So they want to know if we had seafoam's reflections of UV rays, how many times more would it be to get the UV rays that are reflected by water? So in order to do this, I need to have these two representations in the same form. Right now I have a percentage, 25%, and a fraction, 21/25. So I'm going to change these both into decimals. So 25% written in decimal form, if I move the decimal 2 to the right, is 0.25. So where I have seafoam in my formula, I'm going to put in 0.25. Now water is currently written as a fraction. If I get this fraction out of 100 by multiplying by 4, I have 84 hundredths, which is 84%. If I move the decimal 2 to the right here, I get 0.84. So water is reflecting 0.84 of the UV rays that hit it. So how many times more is it to get to this amount that water reflects? So I'm going to divide each side of my equation here by 0.25. Here it will cancel out. And if I do 0.84 divided by 0.25, I get 3.36. So water reflects 3.36 times more UV rays than seafoam.